Hey guys, it's Double here, and I'm finally psyched to show you guys the deck profile of Nurseburn FTK, the Nurseburn OTK, whatever you guys want to say it. I know a lot of you guys have been wanting to see the deck list or deck profile of this deck. It was featured in my own Nurseburn montage video, a super awesome, funny edit video. So if you guys want to see that, I'll put it in the description below. Go check that video out to see some examples of how this deck is in action. But personally for me, I just moved back into SMU. I moved back into college, so there's been a lot of moving pieces in my life. There's been a lot of responsibilities, a bunch of trainings, a bunch of hours I had to put in for just to move back into school. So I put YouTube on a side right now, but I'm very happy to just pull it back into my life and to show you guys this awesome deck profile. So before we begin, I just want to see if you guys can feel free to subscribe to my channel, give a like to this video. I'm on a road to 100 subscribers. I know it's super awesome for me. I mean, it's not like a huge landmark, but at least for me, guys, from 0 to 100 subscribers in like a few months, that's actually like super awesome. And I only need a few more. So I mean, it's just a number at the end of the day, but to see a 3-digit number next to my channel, guys, it'll mean the world to me. But with that out of the way, let's just get right into the video. So I'm on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro right now. I don't have this deck IRL in real life, but to mention this deck is pretty much budget for the most part with the new reprint of Dark Lord Ishil in Battles of Legends of Wetlands Revenge. It used to be in this other set that I came out first released in, but it was a short printed secret rare, right? So that was super expensive for a long time, but now it got reprinted. The only expensive card in this deck actually is Card Demise, which is unfortunately a mandatory 3 of. This card's honestly broken for these kind of degenerate like FTK decks, and you need to run 3. So this deck moves from budget to sort of higher end budget. So you'll be paying $60. But again, on the brighter side, the extra deck is basically free. You don't have to buy all these cards. You don't even need all these cards. You just need something there to work with, try and guess. But again, this deck, Nurseburn FTK, this deck has been like a deck for a long time, ever since Nurseburn. The Nurse card has been released a long time ago, but it's just been getting better and better and better until it got to a point, guys, where it was so good in a match. If you won the coin flip and your opponent didn't have any hand traps at all, didn't have any responses, you could get that FTK 75% of the chance. It was actually like broken. I mean, that's just a number that some people made up, but it was very, very consistent. But there have been some changes to Yu-Gi-Oh! To the Yu-Gi-Oh! Format that sort of changed this deck, which, for example, is the introduction of hand traps. So there's a lot of things that can disrupt this sort of deck, just like an Infinite Permanence to negate Nurse. An Ash Blossom to stop any of these cards, which basically just hinges your deck. If you go -1, if they stop a Pot of Desires or Card Demise, that puts you back a lot, especially for these degenerate decks. And of course, the introduction of Link monsters, specifically hurting Try and Guess as a card. But we'll get onto that when we get there. So, if you guys don't know what this deck does, let's just explain it. So Dark Lord Nurse Refucule's effect says any effect that would make your opponent gain life points inflicts the same amount of damage to them instead. So there's a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which actually benefits your opponent by giving them an increase of life points. We take those cards to our advantage, and with Nurse Refucule on the board, they actually do burn damage instead. So it's not technically an FTK because they are trap cards, but it's basically an FTK. So the ideal setup would be Nurse Refucule, basically 3 gift cards. Gift card says your opponent gains 3,000 life points, but with Nurse on the field, they actually burn 3,000 life points. You set 3 gift cards on your field, and then you wait a turn so that your trap cards can be ready to activate. And then when your opponent draws a card and they're in your draw phase, you are now legal to activate your trap cards. You flip 3 gift cards in a row if they have no response, if they have no infinite permanence at all or something, or maybe a red reboot, then negate that trap card. Boom, you just win. You deal 9,000 damage to their 8,000. You win. That's basically the FTK. It's very degenerate. You can see examples in the montage video in the comment section below. But this deck does have some awesome pieces that make this deck super consistent. So the main objective of this deck is to basically draw your entire deck. And if you draw your entire deck, you get Nurse Burn. You get any of these basically adding life points cards. You set them, pass turn, you win, right? It's basically Exodia, except it's a lot more lenient Exodia, right? So Exodia needs exactly these 5 pieces, and they're all limited, so you basically have to draw your entire deck to have your hand of those 5 cards. But with Nurseburn, it's sort of like a combo FTK, where you have to get certain pieces. The pieces are very lenient. You just need some burn cards, and you need Nurse, or you need Bad Reaction to Samachi, which is the trap version of Nurse. So it's like that's what makes this deck so consistent, is that like it's just so malleable. So all the common pieces can work with each other. And the next monster, you don't run that many monsters, is Dark Lord Ishil. Again, this card was released a few years ago, had a reprint in Battles of Legends, so this card is now budget. But basically, this card says you can discard this card and one Dark Lord card, which is either the draw card, the search card, or Refuel, or itself, and then you just draw 2 cards. So it's, again, draw support, specifically for Dark Lord monsters. The second effect says you can pay 1,000 life points and target a Dark Lord spell and trap in your graveyard. Apply that target's effect. You won't be using that effect at all, because there's actually like almost no way you can summon Ishil to your board at all. And that's basically it. So you just want to have this card and you pitch it with another Dark Lord card to draw more cards, right? So it's again an amazing tool that we can use to draw more cards. And I have 2 Battle Fader. This is just in the case, these are just more alert targets that we can use. And in the case that all goes awry, we can drop the Fader. I'm testing it. It seems sort of fine, but the thing is, it sort of doesn't really work. Hand traps don't really work with this deck because we have many cards like Into the Void and Card Demise that eliminates the hand at the end phase. So basically, if you pull these cards, it's basically just an all or nothing. But the battle phase are really helpful if you do get that alert off. And again, the awesome drawing spell cards, Card Demise, literally the most broken card in today's format, besides Firewall Dragon, and a bunch of other cards. But just like the card itself, it's honestly busted, guys. Again, you draw until you have 3 cards in your hand, but the cost that for the rest of the turn, your opponent takes no damage, and then you send your entire hand to the graveyard, right? And you can only activate 1, and you cannot special summon any monster. So what that means that you don't special summon monsters anyway. You won't be doing damage this turn because they're trap cards. You do the damage during your opponent's following turn, and then the draw support is just so also sending your entire hand doesn't really matter because you set your entire hand before discarding on those cards. And that drawing until you have 3 cards in hand, if you pull this guys off with 0 cards in your hand, you go +2 literally for free. That's such a good card in this deck. You need to run 3. And then we have 3 Allure of Darkness. Again, just cycling through your deck. It evens out. But let's say you have multiple Dark Lord Nurses in your hand. You can pitch it for Allure. You have a dead Fader, pitch it for Allure. And again, Dark Lord Ishil, I did not say it before, but it is a hard once per turn, so you can't keep on abusing it. You can only use it once. And then this is FTK, so you're basically only going to use it once per game. And if you have a dead Dark Lord Ishil, meaning that you already used Ishil's effect with another copy of itself, you can again pitch it for Allure. This is an amazing card in this deck. And again, 3 Pot Desires. Again, this Pot Desires is a hard once per turn, but it is a straight +1. The chance that you banish 10 cards that are integral in the combo are very, very slim. That's basically if you banish all 3 Nurses, your 2 Samochis, and something else, you basically lose. But for the most part, that's not going to happen. You're going to mill cards that you don't really need. Not mill, but banish cards. And then again, you still want that +1. It's such a good card for an FTK. Upstart Goblin is actually have a different usage just for the plus of just for the draw card. If you do summon Nurse on your first turn for the FTK, and you pull and you drop Upstart, you actually do burn damage and draw a card. I remember when this deck had 3 Upstart Goblin, it was actually sort of nutty where you can actually like drop 3 Upstart Goblin for 3,000 damage. So that was basically a hit on this deck when they did drop Upstart to 1. But another fact that you guys should know is that if you do activate Card Demise, Upstart won't actually work because dealing damage, your opponent takes no damage during that turn you activate Card Demise. So again, you still would draw a card, but you just won't get that 1,000 life point damage. And then we have 3 Banishment of the Dark Lords. This card's actually awesome, guys. It literally says add 1 Dark Lord card from your deck to your hand, except itself, hard once per turn. This literally searches Nurse. This literally searches Ishil. If you have any one of the 2, you sort of want to get the other card and then pitch them for Ishil's effect. This card's honestly busted. Also, like, let's say you want to use a magical mallet, you want to use Demise, you can easily set this card, reduce the number of cards in your hand, and then just activate it because it's a spell card. You can do it during your turn. I'm sorry. Again, awesome utility. Again, it's a hard once per turn. But also, this card can save you. Let's say you have to set it, and then you have to pass turn. Your opponent does not reverse OTK you. Use it, get some more support back. And we have 3 Into the Voids. Basically, it's an upstart, but the effect is you have to discard your entire hand. Also, it's important that you have to have 3 or more cards in your hand But for the most part, you will meet that condition on the first turn. And again, we have three power dualities. This card's actually really good, guys. Because sometimes, again, it's a malleable combo deck, right? Sometimes you need that one card to just get the OTK FTK going. And that's why duality is pretty good. We're not gonna special summon anyway, and if we are, it's Battle Fader on your opponent's turn, which doesn't matter. And then you can just reveal the top three, get one card. And it's super good in a combo deck, right? Sometimes you want to get that card demise, the most broken card. Sometimes you need a burn card. Sometimes you need the nurse to do the OTK. And also you can set this card. Also, it's dead anyway. You can just throw it off with Into the Void or card demise. Amazing. And we do run 2 Magic Kamau. This is the last resort, basically, in which we don't have any combo pieces. Like, sometimes, like, we may have too many combo pieces and we don't have the actual OTK. Let's say we have Nurse, we have a gift card, Path of Destinies, and something else, right? Sure, you can just mount it for one, but then the odds of you getting that one burn card to get the actual OTK is sort of off. So then it's actually the smarter play is to hopefully mount all your cards from your hand and get like a more busted draw card. But we do need this card. Again, you can set it if you have to for card demise. And then we get to the burn cards, basically. Gift card, the best card you want to see along with Nurse is that your opponent gains 2,000 life points. Psych, they lose 2,000 life points. And now we have the Path of Destinies. This is a really funny RNG card. There's a very funny moment in the montage where you can actually like, even with Nurse not on the board, it can still work, right? So both players toss a coin once. If a player result is heads, they gain 2,000. If the result is tails, they take 2,000. So you go first, right? And sometimes you get super lucky. You get heads. You literally go 2,000 up. Let's say you don't have the OTK, but you have Path of Destinies. You can literally like save yourself a few turns if you just get that lucky coin flip, right? But also, your opponent can get unlucky too, right? So if they get tails, they take 2,000. So even if Nurse is not on the board, if they just roll tails, which happened in the montage, they just straight up lose, right? But what Nurse allows us to do is that it makes it automatically get 2,000 every time. So if they gain 2,000, they lose it, and if they lose 2,000, they still lose 2,000 life points. If you guys get the sort of flow I'm going with. And then again, we have the awesome card that came out a long time ago, but when it came out, it totally revolutionized this deck. Try and Guess. So this card's sort of complicated. So if each player has an extra deck, so you have to actually have an extra deck to fulfill the requirements of this card. So if you're playing against Monarchs, again, you can't even activate this card, which sort of sucks. It's basically not a lose because you're wasting 3 cards. Declare one extra deck monster from a card. Declare one extra deck monster card type. Fusion, Synchro, or XC. So again, no link monsters. And a lot of decks run mono link. So this card is basically dead. Does not do any burn damage. Both players reveal the extra deck. And if they have more cards of the declared type, they gain 3,000 life points, right? So our extra deck is made in such a way that we target XCs, Synchros, or Fusions for the most part. Back then, a lot of people had majority XCs deck. And since we had no XCs, we call XCs. We reveal our fusion, or we reveal our extra deck, right? We see no XCs monsters. Your opponent reveals their extra deck. They'll have at least probably one XCs monster, and then they actually gain 3,000 life points. But with Nurse on the field, it's actually losing 3,000 life points. So it's basically another copy of Gift Card. It was an awesome addition to this game, but now the meta has changed in which there's more link monsters now. And then I'll explain the extra deck when we get there. And lastly, the last card is Bad Reaction to Samochi, which is basically a trap version of Nurse Refuel. A continuous trap card. So what I like to do for safety is that I'd have Nurse on the board, I'd do gift card, whatever, get my 8,000 damage on board, and then the last chain would be Bad Reaction, because let's say like they respond with all these cards with the destruction of Nurse, and when chains go backwards, right, Nurse would be destroyed and they gain life points instead. Psych, the last card we can do is Bad Reaction to Samochi, so we have 2 cards in play. And again, you always want to activate this card last, since chains activate backwards, so this card's on the field when these cards actually activate and actually gain life points for your opponent. And now we go on to the extra deck, guys. So I have just a bunch of link monsters because theoretically we can still go into the link deck. But honestly, we're not gonna go into these cards. You can make Karibo from a Battle Fader, but that's pretty much it. And we run 2 fusions. We run Commander Tech Fortress Dragon and Commander Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. They're basically cards that we can fuse that don't really need cards from us. So like if you're just playing Cyber Dragons, you can just take their monster, take their Cyber Dragon, and take all the machines, go into a Chimera Tech, or take their extra deck Monster Zone and go into a Mega Fleet. And it's also like super important that we do this. So it's important that we have fusion type monsters so that, let's say you know your opponent's extra deck, right? If you're in a tight situation, you just gotta call fusion. Most of the time they don't have any fusion type monsters, so then if you need life points, right, you can just call fusion. You yourself have more fusion type monsters than they do, and then you gain 3,000 life points. But it's very, very niche. If you guys really want to do it, just run all link monsters, because sometimes people do run instant fusion and they may only have one target, and so in this case you wouldn't actually, that FTK wouldn't actually happen. But it's a judgment call. I like basically like making fun of Cyber Dragon players. I can literally just take the field if I wanted to and do damage that way. But guys, that is the deck profile. It's a very long explanation. Like once you guys start playing with this deck, it's very, very simple. I'm just saying like all the little ideas and thoughts that happen in my head right now. But if you guys enjoy the video, again, like this video, please. I'm on that road to 100. I can just taste it right now, guys. I'm gonna be so happy when I do get there. But guys, again, if you have any questions, any additions to this deck, anything you want to add, anything you want to take away, the comment section is your best friend. Put anything you want into the comment section and I will respond for sure. But I think that's it, guys. Again, hopefully you guys will stick around on this channel. I'm going to start school very, very soon, but I should find time to make awesome videos. I have a new setup. I have everything with me right now, and I'm really psyched to start the new year with this new channel, guys. So I think that's it, guys. Double costing out. What's up, guys?